After months away, John Marston has returned to his loved ones while trying to rebuild his ranch and win back the trust of his family. Marston awaits whatever life will throw at him. As he drives home one evening from an errand, he ponders whether a man can ever escape his past. He is a man who is ready for anything. Almost anything.
Howdy cowpokes, and welcome back to the channel. As much as I enjoy summer, fall is definitely my favorite time of year. Cooler weather, leaves changing colors, pumpkin beers back on tap, what's not to love? And with the arrival of fall comes the start of spooky season. Sure, it's still September, but you can already find Halloween decorations and candy in every department store, so it still counts if you ask me. So what better way to get into the spirit than with a spooky game? Today we're diving back into Red Dead Redemption to check out its DLC, Undead Nightmare. This expansion fully embraces the vibe of classic B-movie horror, with a little fantasy sprinkled in for good measure. Undead Nightmare is a campy, over-the-top experience that flips the tone of the main game on its head, treating the serious grittiness of Red Dead Redemption's world for schlocky zombie fun. Thanks to that dramatic shift in tone, and the fact that the zombie craze was still at its peak, Undead Nightmare became a must-play for anyone craving more undead mayhem. So let's take a closer look at what made this DLC so good, what it did differently from the main campaign, how it set itself apart from other zombie games of the time, and whether it still holds up almost 14 years later. Oh, and I'm going to assume most of you already watched my Red Dead Redemption video, or played the game, so I'm not going to touch on the main campaign much, or explain who any returning characters are. Also, like, comment, subscribe, all that fun algorithm jazz. Undead Nightmare is a non-canon, alternate universe story that takes place after John has completed his work for the government and returned to his family. It kicks off on a dark and stormy night, with John arriving home to find his son Jack caught up reading a book about monsters. Jack explains that the story is about Aztec warriors who usually worship the sun, but some turn to worship the moon instead, throwing the natural order off balance, and creating monsters, I guess. I wonder if that's a bit of foreshadowing. After this small, wholesome moment between father and son, the Marstons will all go to bed, and while they're a little concerned that Uncle hasn't returned home yet, John states that the old coot probably went to find shelter to stay dry and ride out the storm. They don't have to worry about him for long though, as Uncle returns during the middle of the night. And holy shit, he's a zombie now.
What the hell is wrong with you? Crazy old bastard!
Assuming Uncle is just sick or has lost his mind, John runs off to grab his gun for his family's safety. Unfortunately, Abigail chose not to follow her husband outside, which results in Uncle getting back up and chasing after her, knocking her down and taking a bite out of her neck before John has no choice but to put the old man down.
You brought this on yourself!
It's not long before things spiral out of control, as when Jack comes outside to check on his injured mother, she ends up biting him. His family, now rabid flesh eaters, John will lasso and hogtie the both of them for their own safety. And the safety of others too, I guess. With no clue on what the hell is happening, or how to help Abigail and Jack, John decides to go seek some help.
Probably just a fever. Jack, be kind to your mother. Abigail, teach the boy right from wrong. Both of you. Stop biting chunks out of people. Be back as soon as I can.
I just love John's whole reaction to this. Like, he's barely taking the situation seriously. Yeah, the concept of zombies didn't exist in this time period, but things like rabies existed, right? You'd think he'd be more concerned about what's happening to his wife and son, as opposed to treating it like something they just need to sleep off. But the low stakes and lack of seriousness is what gives the DLC its charm. Now that the story is kicked off, let's dive into the changes Undead Nightmare brings to Red Dead Redemption. The most obvious one is that most of the enemies, both human and animal, have been replaced by zombies. The basic undead, which make up the majority of the zombies, are a bit tougher than your average human, but they're not much of a threat. They're slow, can't climb, and don't use ranged weapons. Plus, landing headshots on them is a lot easier than with their living counterparts. Of course, the game would get boring quickly if we were only dealing with these lumbering idiots. So like any good zombie game, Undead Nightmare throws in some variants. First, we got the Bolters. Faster, less durable zombies that crawl on all fours. They're basically this game's version of Left 4 Dead's Jockey. Their speed and smaller hitbox make them harder to hit when they rush at you, but since they go down in one shot, they're hardly a threat. Next up are the Bruisers, Undead Nightmare's equivalent of Left 4 Dead's Charger. These big old boys are tougher and will charge at John, knocking him to the ground if they connect. And finally, we have the Retchers, which are a mix of the Boomers and Spitters from Left 4 Dead. These are the only enemies that can hit John from a distance or from elevated platforms with their acid projectiles. And when they die, they explode, damaging anything nearby, John included. Zombie animals don't play a major role in story missions, but can still be a real pain when you're out exploring the world. Undead Cougars still obnoxious little fuckers like the living counterparts. While I appreciate that we have some zombie variants, even if they're a bit uninspired, I wish there were some more. The 4 that we get, even in larger hordes, don't add much difficulty to the encounters. Since it's hinted that some zombies retain a bit of their sentience after turning, a zombie gunslinger would have been a cool addition. It would have added more challenge to fights, especially by preventing you from trivializing encounters by just climbing onto a roof. They could have introduced a more dangerous enemy since, you know, they'd still be using guns. The game does try to balance the difficulty, not by making the enemy stronger, but by limiting your resources. With the world falling apart, all shops are closed, so you have to scavenge for ammo, healing items, and other supplies to survive. Ammo can be picked up from zombies that have ammo belts, is given as a reward for completing certain mission objectives, and are sometimes given as gifts from NPCs when helping them out. Ditto for healing items or tonics that fill your Deadeye meter. There's more ways to get your hands on this stuff, but I'll circle back to that in a bit. Riding off to Blackwater, the town has already been overrun by the undead plague. As John looks around for survivors, he bumps into his old buddy, Professor McDougal. In the main story, he fled to Yale when Dutch and the local native tribe marked him for death, mainly because of his racist antics. But he returned in order to study the undead population and see what makes them tick. While his credentials are questionable, he's unfortunately the only option in trying to solve what's happening and hopefully cure Abigail and Jack.
Wait, you should stay with me, Professor. You haven't got a gun.
Oh, no, it's okay. There's no need to worry. Everyone's already dead. I left my stuff with Mr. Nastas. You remember him. Indian fellow, dumb as bricks, but a good sort.
Okay. Well, meet me in a couple minutes.
Affirmative. A couple of minutes.
Well, shit. Oh well. Rest in piss, asshole. Searching around Blackwater, John will stumble upon a still-living woman hiding from the undead. She was traumatized by seeing her mother tear her father to pieces. While her daddy wasn't always a good man, according to her, he didn't deserve to die. Especially since he was caught off guard by seeing his wife again, as she had actually been dead the last 3 years from smallpox. Giving John his first clue that this is no ordinary disease, the woman hands him a torch and begs him to burn down the coffins at the nearby cemetery, in order to prevent more of the dead from rising. Oh, and to kill her creepy uncle if he comes back too. This introduces the first of 2 recurring mission types, clearing out cemeteries, serving as a sort of horde encounter. When you burn the first coffin, you'll have to burn several more and clear out all the zombies that spawn. While you can use the torch to kill them, honestly you're better off just shooting if you have the bullets. Nothing particularly difficult, especially as the undead horde are pretty squishy and can be easily dropped by headshots. A graveyard will be completely cleansed once a named zombie spawns and is killed. In this case, it's the woman's uncle, Mordecai. While they are sometimes a different zombie variant, these named zombies aren't much more difficult than the usual fodder you fight. Heading back to Blackwater, we're thrown into our second recurring mission type, Town Safety. In order to sleep in and fast travel to a town, you'll now have to assist the surviving locals in defending their settlements against zombies. When entering a town under siege, you'll see this meter at the top of the screen that slowly fills as you kill zombies. You also see these nodes above that meter that indicate the level of work you need to do to save the town. Outside of just filling the safety meter, you can instantly complete a node by providing survivors with ammunition they request. And if by chance you don't have enough of the ammo they need, there are chests marked on the map nearby that you can loot for that ammo. I'll be honest with you guys, these town safety missions suck. They're not hard at all, especially since it's way easier to just give survivors ammo to complete it faster than wasting time clearing wave after wave of undead. Next, these defense missions are repetitive as all hell. Outside of the amount of zombies to kill and survivors to help, nothing about them changes whatsoever. No extra objectives are introduced or some kind of boss zombie thrown in to spice up the fighting. And while it won't happen often, some of these locations will come under attack again, and you'll need to clear them out again if you want to continue to fast travel to them. And the worst thing is, they make up the bulk of the content for the game. Most are optional and you don't have to save every town unless you want to, but it's still a blemish on what's otherwise an excellent DLC. Speaking to the few remaining townsfolk of Blackwater, they all have some ideas on what could be causing the zombie apocalypse. One woman says it's being caused by a guy in possession of a glass eye. A man says that it's the work of some local snake oil salesman. And the last lady is just racist. There's no way Mexicans could be responsible for this. So that leaves the other two leads. The guy with the glass eye would be our grave-robbing friend Seth, and the snake oil salesman would be Nigel West Dickens. Before catching up with either of those two, we first gotta do the best mission of the entire DLC, Birth of the Conservation Movement. Heading out to a cabin south of Tall Trees, John will speak to some old coot who says he just shot a Sasquatch. Despite all the shit John's seen with the undead, he doubts the old man actually saw a Sasquatch, or wood ape. Still, somewhat curious, he'll explore the area and holy shit, there's a Sasquatch! Then another, and another. Slowly but surely, John will whittle down away all these Sasquatches until only one remains. And shit gets depressing as fuck.
Shoot me, human! Shoot me!
Oh, I will, you foul creature of the night.
You'd be granting me peace.
Why's that? Keep you from eating more babies?
What in the name of all that's right are you talking about, human?
You eat babies. You have to survive. Everyone knows that. Ain't your fault.
We eat berries and mushrooms, you fool! But we did. Now none of us are left. Some maniac's been murdering us. I'm the last of my kind. We've lived in these hills 1,000 years.
You eat babies.
If you say so, human. My family is gone. My kind is gone. Shoot me. I can't take it anymore. Make it stop.
Woof. I don't think any moment in any video game has ever made me feel more like a monster than my encounter with the final Sasquatch. Like his crying and the emotion in his voice. Holy shit, I hope the guy who voiced him got like an award or something for that. Poor little fella. Let me just put you out of your misery. Good night, sweet prince. I said good night, sweet prince. Alright, enough goofing around. Let's get down to solving this whole zombie problem. Eventually tracking down Seth south of Thieves' Landing, John finds the weirdo enjoying a game of cards with his pal Moses. Except Moses is a zombie now, and despite how much the pair hated each other in life, as shown during the main campaign, the two of them are actually rather chill and cordial now. Well, Seth is cordial, Moses is just standing there, surprisingly docile compared to every other zombie seen so far. I can't remember if it's directly explained in the DLC, but it's implied that the reason the zombies are so calm around Seth is because of how he treated them when they were dead, but not yet undead. Even though he robbed their graves, Seth made a point to John about how he always treated the bodies with respect, and even took the time to talk to them, still treating them like they were living people. This also explains why the townsfolk suspect he's behind the mess in the first place, since the zombies just leave him alone. Seth doesn't offer much help in dealing with the zombie plague, only telling John that something like this has happened in the past, and it'll eventually end on its own. Somehow. For now, Seth just sends him out to burn down some more graveyards in New Austin. Well, before taking care of that, let's stop in on the McFarland Ranch and see how Bonnie is doing.
First hell walks the earth, then you turn up. Could my week get any worse?
Nice to see you too, Miss McFarland.
Oh, I thought you'd be dead. I heard things were bad in West Elizabeth.
Sure. But it'll take more than an apocalypse to take me down.
What are you, a demon or a cockroach?
Both, I fear. How's your father?
Fine and dandy. He should be coming out of that barn any moment now. Daddy!
Huh. I'm not liking how quiet Mr. McFarland is being. Also, I'm not 100% sure if it's intentional or not, but his plan of rounding up zombies in the barn instead of outright killing them sounds like a reference to The Walking Dead, as Herschel did the same thing when Rick's group met him on both the show and in the comics. Reminds me, I gotta get around to covering Season 3 of Telltale's Walking Dead. Heading into the barn after clearing out the zombies inside, John will find Drew McFarland. And unfortunately, he's been bitten, and become yet another member of the Walking Dead. Vaya con Dios, Mr. McFarland. I'm sorry that pesky wife of John's kept him and your daughter from being together. Afterwards, we'll deliver the bad news to Bonnie, who, while distraught, is happy her father died trying to help others. Unfortunately, we still can't enter her house. Bummer. Heading out to Armadillo, after helping the locals defend the town against zombies, John will reunite with Marshall Johnson. Like everyone else, he doesn't have a clue why people are eating each other, and he's got his hands full trying to maintain law and order. So he asks John to go look for his two no-good deputies, Eli and Jonah, to put them back to work, or put them 6 feet under if they've been turned. So we'll look around and ask the remaining townsfolk if they've spotted either of those two idiots, starting with local racist Herbert Moon.
Hey, mister.
Hey, Pard.
You seen a couple deputies nearby? Marshall's boys, Jonah and Eli?
Are they Jews, mister? They sound like Jews.
I don't know. Why?
Why? This whole thing is nothing but a Jewish plot. You do know that, don't you?
I find that highly unlikely, amigo.
Well, I don't like Jews. Or colored folk. Or natives, now that you mention it.
Well, you're a nice, kind-hearted man to meet in a time of trouble.
Kind does not come into it.
Why? What are you talking about?
Why? I bet you like Catholics. I can't stand them neither. Nor women. Fabians, socialists, homosexuals, Asians, or British. Between them, they've ruined this country. Ruined it. It was a good country once. Now people are eating each other, and it's all the fault of the Jewish, British, Catholic, homosexual elite and their ideas. Well, I, for one, won't stand for it.
Christ, the guy is the embodiment of every racist conspiracy theorist you see when scrolling through social media nowadays. That a throwaway gag character like him was used to expand the lore of the strange man is mind-boggling. Welp, enjoy getting torn to pieces, asshole. After running around, we do indeed find Jonah and Eli. And yep, they're zombies now, and we need to put them down. The Marshal appreciates John putting them down, and as thanks, gives him Jonah's sawn-off shotgun. While I like seeing characters like Bonnie and the Marshal again, I really wish they were more active participants in the zombie plot, instead of being relegated to brief one-off missions. Especially since, again, most of the runtime is spent bringing towns or clearing graveyards. Speaking of which, after clearing the cemeteries of New Austin, John will return to Seth, who has completely lost his mind. Okay, I mean, he wasn't ever really right in the head, but Seth has gone full-blown loony as he dances around with his zombie pals. Also, he decides to swallow that glass eye he found for some reason. The dancing idiot does offer up some useful info, claiming that this zombie curse happens every 200 years and is related to the Aztecs somehow. Seth tells John to head to Mexico to find the answers he seeks, and with that, we say goodbye to Seth. Before we head south of the border, let's stop in at Fort Mercer and check up with Nigel West Dickens.
Step right up, step right up. Don't be shy now, don't be shy. Nature confounds us, but science saves us. That's the truth, sir, that's the truth. West Dickens patented tonic. The only 100% original, 200% guaranteed cure against the undead stalking this earth.
Unsurprisingly, he's still up to his usual scamming ways, and John has zero patience for it this time, calling out the old man for trying to take advantage of desperate people during this zombie mess, and forcing him to give away his snake oil for free, which we quickly learn doesn't repel the undead, and instead attracts them to you, as this poor bastard learns the hard way. Still, Nigel West Dickens won't be deterred, as he's sure he can concoct a real repellent if he had more of the right herbs. Which of course means John will have to do the hard work of tracking down what he needs. On the bright side though, he does give him some zombie bait, which works handy at luring zombies away from you or closer together to take out easier. As I gather some flowers for Nigel West Dickens, we'll bump into aspiring movie mogul D.S. McKenna. I thought he was a new character introduced for the DLC, but you can actually meet him during the main story if you visit the cinema in Armadillo. McKenna sees this zombie apocalypse as a new opportunity to build his film studio, and asks for John's assistance in procuring a retro zombie for the movie he plans to make. After finding, hog-tying, and delivering the zombie he needs, things play out pretty much like you'd expect from an idiot trying to exploit the undead.
Do something interesting now! Ah! And action! Zombies, go! Oh, your hands are eat human flesh! That's right, that's right! Go! Go! Ah! Motion! Ah!
While I run around looking for those herbs for Nigel West Dickens, now's a good time to talk about another new addition to the game, the Four Horses of the Apocalypse. During the main campaign, I never really gave it much thought in capturing or buying a new horse. Outside of the additional stamina, what kind of horse you rode around on boiled down to personal preference. And, admittedly, that's still kind of the case here. But now we got a new set of mythical horses with some cool abilities. As we're running around the world, you'll occasionally see an alert telling you a mythical creature is nearby, and a blue circle will spawn on your map. Head to the blue circle and look around to potentially find yourself a cool new horse to lasso and tame. The Four Horses of the Apocalypse include Pestilence, which is nearly impossible to kill, Famine, which has infinite stamina, but was also extremely easy to kill, as I found out when we fell off a cliff after I just tamed him, War, which leaves trails of fire as it runs around, burning any zombies it tramples over, and after beating the DLC, you unlock Death, which causes nearby zombie heads to explode when hanging around them long enough. Oh, and there's also a unicorn you can capture after taming each of the Four Horses of the Apocalypse. Like I mentioned in the video for the main campaign, I still think they should have added some optional races to get more mileage out of your horse, but these mythical ones you can tame are a decent addition. The DLC also gave the random herbs you can find some purpose, as once you bring the required amount to Nigel West Dickens, you'll be able to craft phosphorus coating, which buffs your ammo for a limited time by igniting any zombies that you shoot. I think I only used it like once, but it's still pretty cool. The next goodie we get from Nigel West Dickens outshines it a lot, but we'll have to find some nondescript mechanical parts he left somewhere. In the meantime, let's head back to Fort Mercer.
In a time of enormous crisis, I might have known the government would have you boys doing the work of a common clerk.
Well, thank you for your input, citizen. I'm glad you find life so funny.
My pleasure.
Do you think this poor girl's family finds life quite so funny right now?
Family? I assumed she was a common killer.
She's a missing person. Missing presumed dead, I guess. But you keep cracking them jokes.
After John gets chewed out by the army captain for being a comedian, we're introduced to a new side activity, Missing Persons. Functionally the same as bounty hunting missions from the main campaign, John will be tasked with finding people who have gone missing, save them from the undead, and bring them home to their families in one piece. After rescuing the first girl, Millicent, the next missing woman is conveniently right by the missing parts we need for Nigel West Dickens. Seeking out the old man to deliver the goods, he whips together the ultimate weapon in zombie destruction. And it's a blunderbuss.
Here you go.
I risked my life for this? A blunderbuss? Is this a joke? What is this, 1850?
Oh, ye of such little faith. You've been hanging around cattle and killers too long. You've got the compassion of a mass murderer and the intellect of a cow patty.
Despite John's reaction, the blunderbuss is actually pretty awesome. Using zombie parts as ammunitions, it's an explosive gun that vaporizes any zombie it hits. The only real downsides are that its area of effect is tiny, so at best you'll kill 3 zombies max if they're bunched up together, and that it's really slow to reload. Still, the fact you basically have infinite ammo for the thing by looting every corpse you create makes it a really impressive weapon. Alrighty, it's time we head for Mexico. Meeting up with Nigel West Dickens one last time, he fills John in that the border is sealed up tight, and the only way in is to hop on a US Army train. After helping out a band of deserters, and getting his hands on an army uniform, John heads to the train where he finds the US Army dealing with a mild undead hassle. After helping them clear it out, they'll head toward the border, and on the way there, the captain orders everyone to get off and clear a roadblock. But things quickly go sideways when they're attacked by more undead. The army retreats, leaving John to handle the situation on his own. After taking care of the undead, John can hop back on the train and plow through the roadblock into Mexico. Back in Nuevo Paraíso, John discovers it's in even worse shape than the United States, as on top of the undead, there's a bunch of chupacabras running amok too. Though they're an optional hunting challenge and not tied to the plot or a survivor mission. Arriving at Las Hermanas, John will find Mother Superior after she just finished dealing with a zombie. She mentions that the other nuns aren't as resourceful as she is, and asks for John's help in heading into town in order to clear it of the zombies. After he does, Mother Superior thanks him and John asks why the plague is happening. She tells him she believes some sort of spiritual infection is responsible, but needs a normal undead to study and figure it out. Once we bring her the zombie she needs, she'll try pouring holy water on it to cleanse it, the water briefly turning the zombie back to a normal person, before it ends up bursting into blue flames. Mother Superior then asks John to clear out the sepulchral graveyard, and gives him some holy water, which basically functions as a Molotov, but, with blue fire. While the graveyard clearing is the same as always, the named zombie who spawns here just so happens to be our old pal, Captain Vicente de Santa. I'm surprised the rebels gave him a proper burial, and didn't desecrate his corpse by blowing it up or something. Oh well, burn in hell, amigo. He's not the only person from our last adventure in Mexico that we're reunited with, as when John drops by Casa Madruga, we run into the old gunslinger Landon Ricketts.
Do you think I like shooting women, you filthy whoremongering wretch?
Gracias, señora, que estaba viendo a mi tía que está media desculpada.
Yeah, get out of here. Go on, get it.
Ándale, gracias.
Hello, Mr. Ricketts.
Hello, John. I see you're enjoying another vacation in our little resort.
Something like that.
Landon seems to be handling the horde on his own, and after a long-winded speech about all the crazy shit he's seen, he suggests that if John could find something that can attract the undead, they can combine it with his dynamite to take out the zombies easier. Luckily, we already have the undead bait thanks to Nigel West Dickens. The dynamite, on the other hand, is another story, as you only get your hands on some if you find it in a chest out in the wild, or as a reward for saving certain towns. After looking it up online, I went out to liberate the people of Gaptooth Ridge from the threat of the Scourge, and got the dynamite I needed. Returning to Landon Ricketts with the goods, he combines them together to create Boom Bait, a throwbow that's the best of both worlds, luring zombies in to get blown to bits. After parting ways with John, he tells him to check out Escalera, as he thinks that's where the source of the zombie madness is, something Mother Superior agrees with when we stop by to see her one last time.
Ay, qué bueno! Senor Marston, how wonderful to see you alive!
I think I've cleared Sepulcro.
You're a brave servant of righteousness.
I've been called many things in my time, but never that. Who is that girl, by the way?
Is it me, or have we seen that Mexican woman several times now throughout the story? John is only just noticing too, But Mother Superior doesn't think much of it, as the girl has a very common look and attire, apparently. That woman did spill the fact that this whole mess is Abraham Reyes' fault, as after he predictably became a corrupt asshole just as bad as the guy we helped him overthrow, the dumbass also went on to piss off an ancient goddess. When we arrive in Escalera, Reyes is still up to his old habit of chasing after skirts, though this time it's because he's a ravenous undead zombie. So we're forced to put him down.
Enough now, friend.
That one's for Louisa, you piece of shit. And hey, wait a minute, it's that same Mexican girl again. John agrees, but the girl brushes it off as a coincidence, and that he probably just been seeing a similar looking girl instead. No time for that though, as she explains Reyes did indeed piss off an ancient goddess by raiding her royal crypt and stealing a cursed mask. Only by putting the mask back where it belongs will the goddess's anger subside and this curse upon the land finally go away. Cool beans. John heads down below with the Mexican girl as his guide, fighting off mummies and more undead until he reaches an altar. Standing before Olmec from Legends of the Hidden Temple, John places the mask back where it belongs, and the Mexican girl reveals she was the ancient Aztec goddess this entire time.
Are you sure?
Of course I'm sure.
How do you know?
My name is Ayotioto.
Ayotioto.
A horse is waiting for you. You should return home.
The curse now lifted, John returns home to find Abigail and Jack completely cured and human again. Which means, oof, John probably shouldn't have been so hasty in killing characters like Drew McFarlane or the Marshal's deputies, as they would have been cured if he just tied them up and waited things out. Oh well, no need to tell Bonnie or the others, I guess. Shit could get messy. Happy to have his family safe and sound again, it's happily ever after for John. Well, not really, because several months later, after John has been killed by Edgar Ross and the government, that damn fool Seth steals the mask from the goddess's crypt, starting this whole zombie mess all over again. On the bright side, that does mean John is technically alive again, though as a zombie obviously, but due to being buried with a bottle of holy water given to him by Mother Superior, it allowed him to keep his soul and sentience when he came back to life. The story is done at this point, but now you can return to the open world to clean up any side activities you got left. And that was Red Dead Redemption Undead Nightmare. While it doesn't quite reach the heights of other Rockstar DLC, like The Lost and Damned or The Ballad of Gay Tony, it was still an enjoyable experience. I love the tone and atmosphere, its unique take on a zombie outbreak, and all the weapons it introduced. Its story is just razor thin, and the bulk of the DLC runtime is taken up by filler content. I think with a little more mission and enemy variety, the DLC would have been perfect. But for what you're paying for, I still think it's solid. Just wish Rockstar had done an Undead Nightmare themed DLC for Red Dead 2, instead of trying to milk the game with Red Dead Online. But I'll get around to talking about the Red Dead Redemption 2 experience somewhere down the line. Maybe even sooner than you'd expect. And that's the video. Thanks for watching, folks. And special thanks to my Tier 2 channel members and patrons, with their names on screen right now. And special thanks to my Tier 3 channel members and patrons, including Alfred Correa, Augie Doggy, Chicken D Samurai, Miles Garrett, Primary, Skillfuse, and Reckless Nerd. If you want to support the channel, you can become a patron or channel member for as low as $3 a month, which will give you early access to future videos, occasionally uncut videos when I'm forced to censor stuff for YouTube, and members-only posts, with the higher tier getting your name in the credits or a verbal shoutout. So, after a week off to decompress and relax, I'm finally back in the swing of things. I unfortunately didn't get to take the trip I was planning, but my staycation has done plenty to get me back into my routine. Never underestimate the usefulness of a good night's sleep, or going out for a jog and touching some grass, kiddos. The Mafia 3 video is well underway, and should hopefully be out by next weekend. In the meantime, I'll probably be dropping a shorter video in a few days on Lollipop Chainsaw Repop, I already covered the original game years ago for the channel, but I wanted to do a smaller review of the remaster. As well, it's nice to see the game ported to modern consoles. I'm not gonna lie, the game has several issues. Not enough where I consider it outright bad, but enough where I'd recommend waiting for some patches and for the game to go down in price. I probably won't get to it before Mafia 3, but with the Dead Rising Deluxe remaster about to drop, I also wanted to do a video on the original version of that game. From there, I don't have a set list of what I want to cover for October, but I'm thinking Days Gone, possibly Yakuza 2, and maybe even Watch Dogs 2. We'll see how it goes. The Final Fantasy VII video taught me how much of a fuck-up I am when it comes to managing my time. So I've implemented a new routine and plan that will get me working on bigger videos months before I actually plan to debut them. Which, if I don't fumble the ball, knock on wood, hopefully means I can end the year with an unnecessarily long video on Red Dead Redemption 2. Hopefully. Again, thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like and comment down below. I'm hoping that we might be able to cross that 100k subscriber milestone by the end of the year, or beginning of 2025. So if you're new to the channel, I'd love it if you subscribed. Check out my video on the first Red Dead Redemption here, or if you're in the mood for something different from me, check out the last video I did on Final Fantasy VII. I'm FuzzySlippers, and I'll see you later. Peace.